cattle would come in, no frontier fence, on the hoof, with the men on horseback, what they used to call los piconeros, which have these big long wooden lances, and they sort of prod the cattle to keep them going in the same direction.
By the 1930s, there were a considerable number of Gibraltarians living in the Campo as a result of overcrowding on the rock, combined with a very high cost of living. Gibraltarians were not, therefore, passive observers of Spanish politics. Rather, they were active participants.
If you didn't look like a smuggler, they just said, anything to declare, and you said no, and you just were waved through. This changed completely when the Civil War, levantamiento, started.
Obviously, in the course of the Spanish Civil War, the violence was massive. Everywhere the Francoist forces or the rebel forces took control, the violence was intense. So that there's no doubt. But it was particularly intense in the south. I wouldn't say that the area around the Campo de Gibraltar that immediate area was worse than the rest of the province of Cádiz, or the rest of the province of Malaga, or the rest of the province of Sevilla. I mean, it was in the middle of those, in a sense, between those three provinces, where, in general, the whole, if you like, the plan of action of the military rebels was to carry out as much, impose as much violence as possible to put an end to possible resistance to what they were up to. And the reason was, of course, that the whole agenda of the Republican government for agrarian reform challenged the big landowners in those areas. And so, in fact, in the areas that we're talking about, much of the repression, the initial repression was carried out by the military forces, the military rebels, but it was very quickly taken over by landowners who had a kind of, what it was called la Policía Armada, the armed police. It wasn't, of course, official at all. It was a kind of armed cavalry financed by the big landowners that went from village to village, carrying out the most savage repression.
One of the first areas that falls after the Canary Islands is Spanish North Africa, which at the time was much more extensive than it is now. And again, from the documents, we get the idea that my grandfather led part of the section against the insurrectionist generals, against the troops that were sort of rising in the name of a right-wing coup. He is captured very quickly at the start of the war, and these are the papers I haven't been able to get. But what happens almost immediately is that he's put through a military tribunal. The whole of Spanish North Africa was put under martial law immediately. So he doesn't go to a civil tribunal, he goes to a military tribunal, and he is charged with treason against Spain. In all this time, my grandmother doesn't know where he is. So this would have happened in Ceuta or nearby, Tetuan or something like that, and very quickly he is sent to Puerto de Santa Maria. When the north is taken by the fascist forces, so the area of Santander and so forth, he is sent to another prison, which is the prison of Santonia. Santonia is an island off the coast of Santander, off the coast of Cantabria. During the time that he's in prison, my grandfather, this is what he used to say, he was offered to join in 1937 the fascist forces, and he refused to do so. He stayed at least loyal to his ideals, and for that he was marked down in prison as a troublesome prisoner. And you can see through, when you read in the files, that my grandfather was tortured. They kept him X number of days without drinking water, and then they gave him a glass of clear liquid. He drank it down thinking it was water, and it was bleach. So they almost tried to kill him. But my grandfather, after then, was not able to eat solid foods for the rest of his life.
Mi padre no estaba ni mi tío, pero después, muchas horas después, vino mi padre Dice, mira, ha venido arrastrándome. Dice, para hacerme creer que estaba muerto, como que estarían matando. Dice, el niño, porque a mi tío le decía el niño, él, dice, parece que sacó una bandera, dice, y la han escondido. Dice, el niño no sé dónde está. Y ya después nos enteramos que se había metido aquí en Gibraltar.
Y vinieron los falangistas. Y le dicen al hombre, y es rubio, no está, porque era rubio. Mi padre. Dice, no, ha ido a comprar por 2 cafés. Ah, bueno, lo vamos a esperar, porque le vamos a hacer unas preguntas. Y él venía cantiñeando con los 2 cafés, uno en cada mano. Cuando los vio se murió porque sabía lo que había. Y, ¿qué? ¿Cómo estamos? Dice, muy bien. Dice, anda, vente que te vamos a hacer unas preguntas. Eso era el día 3 de octubre del año 36. Y ya cuando llegó el día 7 de octubre, ya no lo vio. Y dice mi madre, ¿cómo que no está aquí? Si yo lo he estado viendo el día 4, 5 y 6. Lo he estado viendo. Su madre y yo. Usted está loca. Aquí no ha estado. Ese señor que usted está hablando. Ese señor es mi marido. Y yo he venido aquí con ella a verlo y lo he visto por 3 días. Se lo negaron. Váyate usted de aquí ya, si no quiere usted que la se mampone. Así le echaron.
Vinieron, picaron a la puerta, serían las 2 o las 3. Dice, mira, Jaime dice que te van a, dice, vienen por ti mañana. Dice, le dio el nombre, no me acuerdo cómo era. Dice, achivateado. Dice, con que cogí y vete, y ya me vine yo para acá con mi padre. Y después ya a las 2 horas se vino mi madre con mi hermana. Cogieron una habitación en el patio Carrera, yo me acuerdo, lo último era el patio Carrera. Y de ahí ya se va mi tío a pelear y nos escribía, nos mandó una foto. Mi madre le mandaba ropa, y de gente de aquí de Gibraltar, más aquí ese Amar, el de Benzim, le mandaba llampa, le mandaba ropa. Después lo último que sabemos ya es que ya dejó de escribir y cuando terminó la guerra, un amigo de él que estaba peleando con él, llevaba un vaso aquí. Y nos dijo que lo último que sabía de mi tío que estaba malo con reuma y que se lo llevaran a un hospital.
My grandfather on my mother's side, whose name was Santos Díaz Sánchez, was born in Rio Tinto in Huelva in 1900 when the Franco's African army entered La Línea. His oldest son, who was 16 years old, got killed. Right? And that same day, he was told by a neighbor who happened to be a phalangist. They didn't know this, but he was told that he was in line to be executed for his political beliefs and because he was a Freemason as well. He didn't want to live. Understandably, his older son has just been killed, at 16 years old. And, but he was convinced. He was taken away for a couple of days, and then on a rowing boat he was brought to Gibraltar. He was very much involved whilst he was in Gib, obviously with the Freemasonry, and also with the Socorro Rojo, which was an international organization, right, to help people, Republicans, Lefuengas, etc., who were imprisoned, to help the families, people imprisoned or killed or fighting the war somewhere else. And that Socorro Rojo, that money that was raised in Gib, was then delivered, I don't know how, obviously, but it was delivered to his house in La Línea. And my mother, who was 14 years old at the time, she actually used to take it round to different houses. And she used to tell me that she used to knock at night on the door and put the envelope under the door, obviously to help his families.
Mi tío tenía la fatalidad que bebía y cuando bebía perdía el control. Y entonces en el bar empezó a por esa boca contra Franco, contra la Guardia Civil, contra los fascistas. No vea, se despachó bien. Y dentro del local había uno de Gibraltar, según nos han contado después, se enteró la familia, uno de Gibraltar que era chivato de la policía. Y él se salió del bar y vino de vuelta con un destacamento de la Guardia Civil. Pues la familia en España dio todos los pasos que tuvo que dar, fue a la comandancia militar, a la comisaría, al retén, al hospital, a todas las oficinas de gobierno, lo mandaron a Algeciras, a la prisión de Algeciras, allí no sabían nada. Y al día siguiente, cuando regresaron, pues un conocido mandó aviso a la familia allí en la línea de que no lo buscaran más, que lo habían sacado de la prisión o donde estaba en la línea detenido, lo habían sacado con un grupo de 20 presos, lo habían metido en un camión, lo habían llevado al cementerio y lo habían fusilado. Lo habían echado en una fosa, lo habían echado cal y ahí se acabó todo. Yo creo que tiene que ser uno de los pocos llanitos, uno de los pocos gibraltareños que fueron fusilados en la guerra sin haber pertenecido a nada.
My father was in the ferry La Línea because it happened in July, and under the guise of the La Traca is like a string of bangers which they put when they inaugurate a fair in Spain. They always start with all these bangers making a hell of a lot of noise. And the troops use that as a camouflage to start shooting people.
You can imagine, I mean, you know, loads of people going to the fair, and then suddenly there's shootings, gunfights, you know, and I remember, you know, my grandmother telling me how she literally ran, no?
Lo primero que tenemos que pensar es que Gibraltar va a servir como lugar de refugio de aproximadamente entre 5.000 y 8.000 republicanos, sobre todo, del campo de Gibraltar, de otras poblaciones, pero del campo de Gibraltar. Al principio también es evidente que, que el gobierno gibraltareño va a atraer a ciudadanos británicos de las distintas zonas de Andalucía donde tenían intereses, Río Tinto, Costa del Sol, Jerez, pero el gran grueso de los refugiados van a ser republicanos que huyen de los primeros disturbios y de los primeros fusilamientos que hay en la comarca. En Gibraltar se van a concentrar en las primeras semanas del golpe de Estado aproximadamente sobre 5.000 refugiados. Al principio va a ser un problema muy importante para las autoridades gibraltareñas. El 22 de julio ya se empieza a hablar y se construye el que conocemos todos como el campo de refugiados en la zona donde hoy está el aeropuerto. Ese campo de refugiados va a durar unas 7 semanas aproximadamente. Las autoridades de Gibraltar van a presionar para que esos refugiados vayan saliendo en barco de Gibraltar hacia zonas de dominio republicano en esos momentos, como Málaga, posteriormente Valencia, Barcelona, Marsella.
In the first days and weeks of the Civil War, there could have been up to 10,000 people from the Spanish side of the frontier taking refuge in Gibraltar. Though it is hard to know the exact figure, I've seen 5,000 as well being given out as the maximum. We don't know.
I remember we were going to spend the Sunday afternoon at Eastern Beach, and then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I think it must have been, rowing boats started arriving from La Tunara, and people coming ashore, and the rowing boats went back and came back again. These were people who could not get through the frontier because the frontier was virtually closed in order to stop a big influx of refugees. So they paid the fishermen to row them over. And within minutes, the beach was suddenly full of people.
Within days, it's been quoted that over 5,000 people seeking asylum presented themselves at the frontier. So you can imagine the huge task that was. You had 5,000 people to log down, to see who they were, what could be done for them.
In my own bed, and in my brother's bed, and we had refugees all over the place, sleeping on the floor, in the halls, wherever there was available space.
Amongst these refugees were a good number of Republican sympathisers. And once the camp had been secured by the rebels, it was the presence of left-wing sympathisers which prompted the rebel authorities to close the frontier. In essence, the rebel authorities wanted to force the colonial authorities in Gibraltar to refuse refuge to Republican sympathisers, who could then go on to use the rock as a base from which to operate in Spain. Given the pro-rebel sympathies of the colonial authorities, this was, as they say, pushing on an open door. Camps housing refugees were closed down, and an ordinance outlawing the harbouring of refugees was issued by the colonial government, sometimes referred to as the Impartiality Ordinance, a phrase which my colleague and friend Gareth Sockie coined in his book. Nevertheless, there were ultimately around 500 refugees who could not return to Spain because it was clear that they would either be imprisoned or, more likely, killed by the new regime there. Given the desire on the part of Gibraltar's colonial authorities to curry favour with the new regime, the protection, albeit grudging, offered to these refugees stands as testament to the very real danger they would have faced if they had returned to Spain.
If the Spanish Republican refugees who had found help in Gibraltar and been welcomed by families from Gibraltar, if they had returned, there's little doubt that their fate would have been the same as left-wingers who had also got into exile in France, or indeed there were, at the end of the war, some had gone into exile in North Africa. What they would face at best would have been concentration camps, prisons with unbelievably insanitary conditions, but most likely execution.
Hombre, yo entiendo que con todo, digamos, con toda la historia recuperada en este momento, se ve que ahí se crearon unos lazos de unión propiamente de habitantes que antes del golpe de Estado, pues digamos, había lazos familiares, había lazos comerciales, había lazos laborales también y de otra índole que se tradujeron en esa solidaridad y demás. Yo creo que eso hasta nuestros días, aunque hubo 40 años después de plena dictadura y demás, con lo que fue el cierre de la verja también, yo creo que esos lazos de unión permanecieron y yo creo que entre la población gibraltareña y la de la comarca, yo creo que eso se mantuvo y porque no hay que olvidar la importancia que tuvo ese apoyo solidario del pueblo gibraltareño a aquellos refugiados que venían huyendo de aquella atrocidad, ¿no?
And don't forget that Gibraltarians actually faced prosecution for doing so. There was a very strict permit system in place in Gibraltar, had been for years by the 1930s, which regulated your right of residence in Gibraltar. And yes, you had this influx of possibly as many as 10,000 Republican refugees at the start of the Civil War, but as you say, they closed the camps. They ordered most of these refugees to leave Gibraltar, and local families, because they had so many ties, friendships, family ties, often business ties with people in the campo, frankly defied the orders of the British authorities and simply said, no, we're going to help these people. So, hiding them out in already overcrowded houses, frankly, and doing what they could to help these refugees. And around a dozen of them were actually fined very heavily for doing this, and many others who weren't recorded, nonetheless, were prepared to take that risk. It's really fascinating.
Calculamos entre 5.000 y 8.000 refugiados que llegan a Gibraltar, pues lógicamente van a cambiar en estos primeros días y meses de la sublevación, van a cambiar el ritmo diario de Gibraltar. Las relaciones ideológicas que se van a crear entre los refugiados y sobre todo el sindicato, la Trade Union de Gibraltar, van a ser muy estrechas. Incluso sindicalistas históricos de Gibraltar, pues algunas de sus memorias han dicho que bebieron de las fuentes sindicales de esos refugiados.
Most of them left relatives behind, and my mother used to go over at her own risk to try and get them for them.
Mr. Mesilio, Francisco Mesilio, used to go by rowing boat into the sea between Algeciras and Gibraltar, into the straits, and this was obviously under cover of darkness with no lights, and pick out of the sea those who were injured, who could be soldiers with bullet wounds, or people who were escaping and had gone into the sea to try to swim to Gibraltar. He used to pick them up and take them to his flat in Willis's Road. And there, at any given time, you could have 20, 30, even 40. My mother-in-law used to tell me that when you went into the flat, all you could see were bodies sleeping on makeshift beds all over the floor in every single room. And then obviously after that, they were rehoused in families that he knew were not going to betray them and hand them over to fascists who unfortunately were in Gibraltar to be handed back to Spain to face certain death.
To finish, we come full circle. 20 years ago, our knowledge of Gibraltar's experience of the Spanish Civil War was very limited. Today we know considerably more. However, as I've hinted at, we have only really scratched the surface. The release of new files to the National Archives in London offers hope of further insights, and so too does the discovery of substantial archival holdings in towns and villages all around the Campo and further afield in the rest of Andalusia. We might also hope that local Gibraltarian collections of documents may eventually make their way into the archives too. What we do know is that Gibraltar had a rich and exciting experience of the Spanish Civil War, one which we should investigate further in the future, and one which we should commemorate today in the present.
It's made us stronger, without any shadow of a doubt. We are very strong as a people, as a result of everything that we've witnessed, everything we've gone through, all the battering we get from left, right and centre. That has made us very strong. There's no question about it.
Viva la quinta brigada, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Viva la quinta brigada, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Que sea cubierta de gloria, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. Que sea cubierta de gloria, ay Manuela, ay Manuela.
I'm not entirely sure if there are lessons to be learned from the Spanish Civil War, because it would be difficult to see a similar situation arising in the sense that what happened in Spain happened for two, I mean, in a way it was possible for two reasons. One, because there was the existence of two states, if you like, two rogue states, which was Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, which were keen to upset the international balance of power. The reason they helped Franco was because what they wanted to do was undermine British and French hegemony of international relations. Now, there isn't an obvious equivalent of that today, and the other reason was, of course, that Spain itself was bitterly divided for the reasons that I explained earlier on about the, if you like, the many challenges that the Republic put up against the economic and social establishment within Spain. Now again, a Spain that's part of the European Union, you know, neither is there an equivalent of the aggression of Hitler and Mussolini, nor is there the bitter social division in Spain that there was then. If one wanted to widen it out, I mean, you'd have to say the best lesson would be not have a conservative government in Britain.